Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J and I am here with Shah Barrett.
Hi there.
Wendy Vella.
Hello.
And Cheryl Phipps.
Hi.
And we are live!
Yay! Together!
Away.
And
It's
this...
like the reunion of the Rolling Stones. Oh, hang on, they never said
yeah.
that. No.
Okay, this is like calling our workshop Beyonce style, seriously. But anyway, actually, let's get on with the interview that we have today. We've got an amazing guest. We're very excited to have her here. We've got Bella Andre.
Yay!
Say hi.
Hi.
So people know that you're real and we're not making you up.
Yeah, we trapped her in her room.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read a really quick bio about Bella before we start, just so everyone knows how amazing she is before, and to listen to every single word she says because she's the bomb.
Just to set the time.
Just to set the tone. Bella Andre is a pioneer in the self-publishing sphere. She's the author of the best-selling Sullivans and Morrison series and also writes sweet contemporary romances as Lucy Kevin. Having sold more than 7 million books, Bella Andre's novels have been #1 bestsellers around the world and have appeared on the New York Times and USA Today bestseller lists more than 83 times.
Wow.
Just note that 83.
Yeah,
She has been the #1 ranked author at Amazon, and Apple iBooks have named her one of the best-selling authors of all time. She's here in New Zealand for the Romance Writers of New Zealand conference, and we've kidnapped her and brought her back to our hotel room to give us the inside scoop on publishing in 2018.
And we might not let her go.
No.
I'm never going to leave, so it all works out.
We're adopting her.
Yes.
So let's start at the beginning, and maybe can you talk a little bit about I know it's probably boring to you, but like your background and how you got into
Early
self-publishing. And
I can talk a lot about it. Oh my God. Just stop me at some point. Say that's enough.
Never.
So before I was a singer-songwriter and toured all over, and then was like, ugh, I'm too old for this. So
you and Wendy could do a duo because she loves
Wendy
singing.
used to sing in a band.
Were you? See, we are the same person, which is actually really funny. Of course we're the same person.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
in all ways. So
We look alike.
So anyway, was a musician and then was sort of done with that songwriting, and then hooked up with a friend of mine from college, Jamie Alden, who writes thrillers and sexy contemporaries. And she said, hey, I want to go to this thing called Romance Writers of America, and I'm too nervous to go by myself. Go with me. So I was like, sure, I'll go with you. And coming out of the songwriting world, which is really brutal. I think my perspective into publishing, everyone's like, publishing's so hard. And coming out of the songwriting world, I'm like, are you kidding me? Publishing is literally the easiest business of all time compared to songwriting.
Yeah. It's all about perspective, right?
It is. And I think when you kind of come out of that, and so I was like, this is a world of possibilities. And I actually came home from that first ever romance writers meeting and wrote 3 chapters of a book, which I submitted to a small digital publisher who doesn't exist anymore. But the editor wrote me back that evening.
Wow.
And was like, we want to see the rest. And so I finished that book in the first week and sent it to her, and then she bought it. And so that was kind of where I started with this small digital publisher. And then on book 5, Jamie Alden, who had become my critique partner by then, and Monica McCarty, who writes Scottish historicals and is now doing FBI thrillers and SEAL books, just kind of said, I think this book that you're working on, this is a bigger book than what you had, because they were all novella length. They just said, it's sort of a bigger book. Why don't you try to go mainstream with this? So I got an agent, and she sold that one to Simon Schuster pretty much right away. I mean, and it was the first book of its kind at the time. It was the first sort of mainstream erotic romance, which I don't write anymore, but it was great. They bought it, and I worked with them I did 5 books with them, and then I did 3 books with Random House, and then my traditional career, which really had never gotten out of the starting blocks, it's definitely like hanging on by the fingernails career, like to the very bottom feeder of the mid list, right? And you're, and everyone else, like we were talking at lunch about, you you kind of come up with this class of writers. And I just mean it's your classroom of writers.
Yeah.
Like you're the ones you all are in
They're
kindergarten
my
and first grade together,
Yeah.
whatever, you know. And it's a very difficult thing. It can be to be like, oh, we all started at the same time and you're all superstars now, right?
Yeah.
And I can barely get, you know, a contract for like $5,000. And so that's where I was, and I was at a point where my agent was like, unfortunately, I think no one actually wants to buy a book by Bella Andre. She's like, I love you. Right? I think you're great.
It's like your mother saying it.
Right? No, I think you're really lovely, honey. You know, so it's just like that. And I remember thinking at the time, like, even as sort of beat down that I think I had gotten by that point, which is a rarity for me. I'm not really a beat down type, but at that point, you know, when the doors were slammed in your face and sorry, go away. I remember thinking, you're wrong. And not her, but just sort of like the world of publishing, like you're wrong. Like people want to read Bella Andre books, gosh darn it. No one's ever figured out how to find a Bella Andre reader before. Right? It was really that sense. And so when Monica McCarty, one of my critique partners, was like, you know, there's this Kindle thing, you know, and there's this guy named Joe Conrath, and he has a blog. And God bless Joe, you know, I called him, or I said, can I call you? And he, nice guy. I'm sure everybody and their dog was like, can I call you? And he was like, sure. And honestly, I don't even really remember kind of what we talked about, just that he was really nice and he was really encouraging. And
isn't that so funny that you could just ring him up and have a chat? Like, that's kind of amazing.
His blog was one of the first ones talking about it, though.
He just took the covers off.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Joe, so really God bless Joe, because without him, I'm not convinced that the rest of us really would exist in the way that we do. Like, really have to give him a lot of credit.
He took the slings and the arrows as well from a lot of people.
He did. You know, and then at a certain point, now I'm just talking, but like I think at a certain point he kind of was like, okay, now I'm gonna go write some books. Yeah. And I was glad to see him do that, because I felt like he should have, like, you know, but go write your books, Joe. Like, you've done your part. Let someone else take up the cause now, right? And we all, I think, have taken up the cause. You know, there's been a few, like Joe, me, Barbara Freethy, Hugh Howey, I think, and there's others, but Marie Force, you know, I think different people have kind of carried that torch for different periods of time. And then I think it's sort of good at a certain point, you like kind of pass the torch on, and then you're like, you know, I'm going to go back into my writer role now. But anyway, I veered. But yeah, so I put that first book up in sort of a moment of like, oh, okay, I'm still going to be a traditionally published author, but I guess I have nothing to lose. I have the rights back to this, one of my digital novellas, and totally forgot about it. And then about a month later, I logged on and I had sold 250 books. And they were the greatest 250 books that I had ever sold. You know, 7 million later, I get chills and all teary-eyed on the 250.
Yeah.
Because they changed everything. And actually that day, it was my birthday, and I was going to meet Barbara Freethy and Carol Grace and Anne Mallory for lunch, and they all are local to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I got there late that day, and I remember I had written down like my sales and how much I had earned. It was like $356, whatever it was, you know. And I went to lunch, and they were having a conversation, and just totally walked up and interrupted and slapped that piece of paper down on the middle of the table. And I was like, I sold this by myself. And it was, and no exaggeration, everyone agrees, it was the moment where everything changed, right? Where we literally all went,
I've got shivers.
hold on a minute. No, and when I get teary-eyed and I get all goosebumps, because
I've got goosebumps.
Because it was like the entire world order had shifted for a writer in that moment. I mean, you know, and then I think it was good that I was able to get quite a bit of press kind of early on for what I did, because then other writers went, hold on a minute. Like, I can sort of step outside of what everybody is telling me is the only way to do something, and go try this new path. And so that's my beginning.
Wow, amazing.
That's very cool.
Very impressive.
Do you think your background, that the songwriting and the degree in economics from Stanford, do I have that right?
Yeah,
do you think
but I mean, I just went went and got the degree, I was like going to be a rock star the whole time. So that's really where I was when I was in all my classes.
Did you do that to please someone?
Yes, my father is an economist, and my brother got a degree in economics, and I was like, it was expected of me, and that's everyone go to college, that's great, get a degree, but I was like, I mean, I'm only here to become a rock star, and that was all clear.
Okay, well, as long as we got that clear.
Sorry, I just want to be clear about that. Like, people were all, she really knows her, like, supply demand curves, not so much. But,
so, do you think that helped you when you were kind of getting started, and any of those, or it's just...
Well, the music thing definitely helped. Like, my friends always have claimed, they believe this to be true, that knowing how to write a hooky 4-minute song sets you up for just writing a hooky book. It's like 400 pages. We're doing over 400 pages. What we do in 4 minutes is a song. Yeah. So they're like, plus even titling. I mean, it's all that stuff that kind of... so, yeah, I think I definitely understand hook, which is funny because I don't actually write hooks. But I think branding-wise... I was a successful enough musician, let's put it this way, that I actually wrote the first 2 ever books for independent musicians, ever. The only books that had ever been published on the music industry to that time all of them were the same. They were like basically talking about Michael Jackson's career and his contracts. And I always remember because I am such a researcher, that I was like, I kind of can't find any useful information. So I went out and like kind of paved my own path as a musician and did quite well, and then ended up pitching it to a publisher who was like, oh yeah, we should do this. So we did a couple of books. So that was actually my first publishing experience. It was not for music. But see, it all ties together because it was sort of like the pioneering musician and then the pioneering author. I've always done the same thing, which is my entire shtick, let's put it that way, as a nonfiction music writer, was debunking the myth of the starving artist. I hate the myth of the starving artist. I literally think it's the most offensive thing. So I'm like, you know what? Money is not evil. Money is not bad. And it tends to work that the more people that you can find who enjoy your music or your writing, you tend to make money. And so that's okay.
And you spoke of being an upbeat person, but I don't think any of that would have done any harm to sort of growing that thicker skin.
Right.
To deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can I just ask very quickly what sort of music you sing?
Kind of across between, because if we were the same, then it's really are the same.
If you guys have got the same birthday.
No, I know.
September.
April. Oh my God! The roof almost blew off or something. I don't know.
So what did you say?
No, it was sort of like a cross between almost like Tori Amos and Nora Jones.
Yeah.
Sean Colvin.
Wow. I love Nora.
What about you? What did you do?
Same sort of thing, but I was in a band.
Okay.
Just covers mainly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not anywhere near as flash as you.
Well, yeah, wow. No.
No karaoke tonight.
No.
Oh,
I'm so bad at karaoke.
Yeah,
God.
me too. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Anywho,
back on track. Delete.
No, we don't delete everything you say. So my next actual self-publishing question was, can you think of, if we're going to generalise, of some of the traits that you think people who are coming into self-publishing or who are successful in self-publishing need, like some of the things that you need to be...
These are always the hardest questions. I'm like, there's so much. So qualities.
I'm kind of thinking of like being thick-skinned or kind of personal traits. We're going to go down.
Honestly, we're going talking about this at lunch, but I think you kind of just have to embrace how you are. Like, I literally weep over my keyboard. And when my husband sees me crying on my keyboard, he always knows it's a really good day. right? He's like, this is a good one. It's all happening now. You know? And then, like, when the words are done for the day, like, you wipe the tears and you put the business hat on and you're a tough negotiator and you're, right? And you're getting done what you need to get done. I don't know. I'm really sensitive. I think all of us, I would say probably like literally every person writing here is like, me too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of us are, I'm very introverted. I know you're like, you talk a lot. I do, but I'm very introverted. So, I don't know, just like accept it. And look, here's the fact. as someone who has quite a few 1-star reviews that say, this is for my first Sullivan book, so I have sold of the over 7 million. I think I'm at about 7.5 million, closing in on 8, and about 5.5 million are Sullivans. Okay, so people really like these books.
Yes.
But that first Sullivan book that Wendy said is her favorite has so many 1-star reviews that say, this is literally the worst book I've ever read in all of time.
Wow.
And that go through and detail why it's worse than any other book they've ever read in their 45 years of life. And then, book 2, this one was even worse.
Stop
and I'm like, you could do us both a favor and stop reading.
Yeah, what is wrong?
Because I'm telling you what, not going to change by book 3. Not all of a sudden becoming a different writer that you like. But here's why I get excited about that now. So, like, devastating, like, knife to the chest, right? At first you're just like, did I really write the first book? Like, anyone, like, that ever read.
She said it must be true.
Right, because you think about all the worst books you've ever read.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, it's worse than those.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, oh my God. I've achieved greatness of badness.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that once you kind of, frankly, I've gotten over that now is...
You have 7 million books.
7 million later, you kind of go,
Yeah.
But what that tells me is that I have actually done a fantastic job of reaching outside of a limited readership. And so it actually tells me that I've done my job with marketing. Now, I don't want to waste too much money and time on reaching too far out, but I do want to reach outside a little bit. I want to reach readers that are going to be maybes. Because what I've learned is, for every person who is like literally, I think Bella Andre is the worst writer of all time, 9 out of 10, so that's 1 out of 10 is like, ugh, I don't know why anybody likes her. 9 out of 10 are like, I discovered her, I jumped in on Sullivan 16, and by the next week I'd read all 18. So you have to be willing to go out there and have your feelings kind of hurt.
You do.
And it's like, my husband and I actually talk about this now sometimes, because it's funny when I don't go out looking for reviews. I don't read my reviews, but you do see reviews. Sometimes it is hard to miss your reviews, right? It happens. And a little pang sometimes. But I just say to my husband, I'm like, God, do you remember how I was just devastated? Devastated. Like, I can't go on. And, and
I'm gonna go to
like
bed.
it's right.
With chocolate.
So. So that.
What she said there.
Do you think, because that's an interesting thing, because a lot of the advice now is to go really niche on stuff. Do you feel like you went niche with the Sullivans, or were you aiming niche, or is that not even...
It's funny, like, I think people need to hold the course on what they're doing, and I think people need to consistently fulfill their promise to the reader. Like, that's my big thing. You don't fulfill your promise to the reader, and you lose the reader. And then you act really surprised. I can't believe I lost the reader. And I'm like, we talked about this, you know? But I think that I'm writing exactly the book I want to write, and I'm lucky that it's exactly the book that people want to read. And if you can find concentric circles that do that, then all is well. With that said, my goal when I went into self-publishing, and I actually made changes in the early Sullivans, early on, because, you see, I came out of an erotic romance background, but then I was like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second here. If I'm in charge of my career, what am I aiming at? Well, I'm aiming at Nora, right? Why would I aim to be anybody less than Nora Roberts-esque? Why would I do that? So, and huge, I mean, she's a blueprint for me. And I really was like, what she achieves, I think, so beautifully, and always has, even when you go back to her category books. She was always Nora, first of all. Her books can be super sexy, but there's no language in them. And so when I wrote the first 3 Sullivans and the initial versions that were initially published, I was coming out of that erotic romance background, so they were using more of that language. And when I feel like there's a lot of, and there still are a lot of sort of, every week I'd have a new aha light bulb moment where I'm like, oh, I'm thinking like back in the publishing world, I can actually think this way. And it was when I went to hire my audiobook narrator, and of course, you give them to audition script, and so I gave her the heroine's point of view, the hero's point of view, and a sex scene. And when she read the sex scene and the like the F word and whatever was in there, which is quite liberal in erotic romance, it jolted me every time, and I just went, I don't need those. So it was very easy because that's not really the core of what I was doing anyway, and so it was very easy to take. And I don't. I aim at, with everything that I do with Bella Andre and Lucy Kevin, at the largest mainstream audience possible because I can.
Yeah. Okay, so not niche at all then.
but in a way, yes. I mean, holding the course, but totally broadly mainstream.
So could we talk, because you've got this 18 book series with the Sullivans, and that's amazing. Like, I don't know.
There's 21 if you count the novellas, actually.
Oh, there you go.
So
okay, so
crazy.
21. So, and I don't know if you guys know of another author that has
21 books.
21 books in a single series. Like, that's kind of amazing. So can we talk a little bit about why you've kept it running for that long, and how you keep it fresh, and for you as the author, but also your readers?
Right.
Like, can you...
I absolutely. I mean, I think this is, if you're a writer and you're looking at like what kind of path do I want to chart for myself, you connect your books. And I think there have been people who have had success with single title non-connected books, but they are the exception and not the rule. And it comes down to this is it in a nutshell. And my husband sort of pointed this out to me a couple of months ago. We were talking about coming to speak at the New Zealand conference, and he's like, oh, what do you talk about? I said, oh, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And he said, the thing is, doesn't every single thing that you talk about rest on one assumption? He said, you assume that the writers that you're talking to are writing the kind of books where someone stumbles in on a book, reads it, and then buys the entire rest of their list. So he said, don't you actually, and he was right, and I'm not a craft talker. I don't talk about craft, although I've started to talk about it a little bit more, but I think you really, really have to look at, and it's hard, and I think it's like people going and trying out for like a singing program, and they don't know what kind of singer they are. You really have to take an honest look at your work and say, all right, when someone's going to stumble on any of my books, pick one. It's not necessarily the first one in the series, but they're going to stumble on a book. By the time they get to the end of that book, are they like, I gotta go read the rest of them by this author? And if they're not, I think there's some crucial problems, and you have to deal with those first. If the answer is yes, you're golden, and then listen to podcasts and listen to the business advice and put it together, and it's definitely going to work for you. So that's my belief about series. I will write the Sullivans forever, and that's my plan.
You said you could have 100 books in the series.
Oh, easily. I mean, I've already, I've just released 18 on the single title, not counting the novellas. I have very loosely plotted, I know the characters and stuff, for the next 12.
Wow.
And then now, since I've been in Australia and New Zealand, and I'm like, well, we're obviously having Australian and New Zealand Sullivans. I'm like, there's like another 8 or something. I mean, right? So I mean, we're looking at. I mean, I in my head already, I'm kind of like, I don't know, we're at like 40 somewhere. And I couldn't be more excited about every single one of them. And I have this debate with writer friends that I actually fundamentally don't understand getting bored of writing a series, because for me, every book, they're all related. Okay, right. Every book is totally different. Every hero and heroine has a different thing like to deal with, and that they're trying to get over, and different reasons why they have problems with love, and it's totally different. So the fact that they're part of a family, and that there's sort of a world that surrounds that, in no way makes them the same. I mean, I suppose I can see for people who are writing like maybe like all firefighters or all cops, I can see that can be hard, possibly because you're like, oh, you maybe feel at a certain point like, I've done all the conflicts for firefighters. Although that's not true, you haven't. But so for me, I think because it's a family series and there's not a big hook, it's like, well, they're related. Then you're able to just kind of do whatever you want in every book.
Which is cool.
And all our brains are starting to go, series.
No.
Series.
Keep going forever. And I will say, because like, I don't know, can I say this? I mean, I spent time looking at all of your websites.
Oh no.
And they all looked really, really great. I mean, and this is like me no bullshitting you. I was like super impressed. And my only thing was I was thinking, why are these series not longer? And I'm assuming cozies, those are going to go forever. You're literally going to do those forever. Yeah. I've decided for you. Yeah. And you have, I can see your contemporary can go forever, but it looks like you're splitting your historicals, Wendy. So I'm
actually,
sort of like,
you're talking about the swear words. I might have to cut those.
No, you're so funny. No. And I'm the weirdo who does that, and not everybody does that. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. All right.
But just because I think you have gained the trust of a readership who was like, if you look at sort of reader responses to book 18 that came out. One, you get a lot of like, oh wow, I can't believe I still really love this series by book 18. So there is some of that, but it's like people are like, I'm so glad she's doing the main Sullivans next, and I made sure in the reader note in the front of book 18 to say, don't worry. There's a lot of, I feel like I spent a lot of time saying, don't worry, there's more coming. And so that's very deliberate because people got really panicked. Like as a book a day reader, I get really panicked. I'm like, the series can't end. Never stop.
I'm coming round to your house to stalk you if it does.
Yes.
Do you think that's a romance thing? Because I think of like, you often hear about series and there's a drop off, and that 60% will go on to book 2 and 40% will go on to.
I think that is such a crock. Like, I have tried to calculate, and I think read through is really, really hard to calculate. And what I can tell you is, so you're gonna hopefully reach as far as you can visibility on book 1, right? You're gonna try to get as many eyes as you can say on book 1. Let's call it that. And then some of those people, 1-star, worst book I ever read. And then hopefully you're going to get a subset of those, right?
You, right?
No,
we're not mentioning that for the third time.
No, totally. So some things hurt. And then you're some subset of that, and hopefully quite a large subset. Let's call it 40 to 60% are going to go on and say, I'm going to try out book 2. And then probably, if all is going well in your word, you're going to get like 75 to 80% from there. From that point, it's about 100%.
Wow.
So you should be at 100
right?
from
book.
And yes, and it's actually funny when I've calculated read through. Like sometimes I'm like 102% has gone on from book 7 to 8. That's so interesting. And I think it's because it's getting new readers in at book 8. So then but the numbers, they actually grow, and then you're like, oh, that's interesting. So I think you can just never go on with a series. Where you go on with a series is if you've actually written a series where nobody wants to go on past book 1. But then that's not about the business anymore.
No, that's about a writer.
Yeah. So and when you talk about it as a series, so are there things happening in book 1 that is there an arc across the whole series?
Do you
from
bring
book
a
1 to
character
18?
through? Do you
know what I mean?
Kind of. I think that my one advice for series, and this is just me because I'm not a huge plotter, is be really, really careful what you say about future characters in earlier books, because I guarantee by the time you get to write that person's book, you will be like, oh, that's not it at all.
and then why did I use that?
Why did I even say that one sentence that I put in that I knew I should take out? There's a couple of times where I was like, I hope nobody read too carefully, and I went back and I took out a sentence.
Wow.
And no one ever called me on it, but I'm sure people, but I was like, that is so wrong.
Do you know what they would have done? They would have gone back to their version of it and gone, oh, I must have been wrong. It's not there anymore.
No, right? Because they got the new version.
As long as they updated it.
But that's the beauty of self-publishing too, is I was like, I could erase history a little bit.
Do you make any mistakes? Like, have you made mistakes readers have picked up?
Let's see, if I say no, I'll get a bunch of people saying, no, you so have.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure I have. I have a wonderful woman who puts together a Bible for me.
I was going to ask how you keep track of it all. Yeah.
I really don't use it. The one thing I look up is like, how old are they? What is their eye color?
Yes.
Don't know what anybody's eye color is. In fact, sometimes I don't give them an eye color because I'm like, I'm just going to get it wrong. And if they are engaged, married, or have children, and how old the kids are. Because it's sort of, I have a big family now, and
only getting bigger.
Only getting bigger. And I'm going to give, actually, this is funny because this is totally not, you didn't ask this, but I'm actually going to give my other big tip for series writers, and I think this is the most
sorry, I
important
don't want to hear it.
No, back with the questions. No, this is my absolute number one biggest thing, and I think, especially if you have come out of traditional publishing, this is going to be the thing that is going to be the hardest for you to kind of let go of, but do. The thing that my readers like most of all, is hanging out with the characters.
Right.
So that means sometimes in some books, 15 to 20,000 words of a wedding, a birthday party, a reunion. Now, the plot is moving forward. It's not leaping forward during this. And this really kind of, it was one of those aha moments. Actually, at book 4 with my Sullivans, it was the first wedding. And really, I had the best critique partners in the world, and one of them is a tremendously successful traditionally published author, and she said, "So good, I'm thinking that you could cut that wedding down from 6 chapters or whatever." It was the first 6 chapters of the book, and actually a lot happened in that. But she said, "I think you could kind of turn that down," and I like to listen to people's advice, who I respect a great deal, and then sometimes discard it. And in that one, I think I had a realization. I was only 4 books into a series at that point. I only thought the series was going to be 8 books at the time, but I already was like, wait a minute. I'm not the only one who liked spending 6 chapters at this family wedding and kind of hearing from the characters, and there was a little mystery about that one, and how's that one doing with their marriage? You're just kind of playing with all that, and so it's not, and it's funny because I'm not really a plotter, so it's not like a deliberate thing of where's the wedding in this book, or where's the birthday in this book, or where's the reunion, but it's at some point I do think it's like a natural beat for the story. It goes to the point where there is some family get together of some kind, and we get it, if not all of the characters on the stage, a lot of them. And just spend time with them. Let them talk a little bit. Maybe those characters who haven't had their story yet, we still like hearing from them because it just makes them more interesting. But again, don't make them say anything to paint themselves in a corner. Have them almost talk about the characters who you're writing the book about now. But you're getting their personality. So I think that's my secret tip.
But you're not just having a random scene with nothing. You're still giving. You said there was a mystery here, or there was a.
Well, the plot's moving. Look, the plot has to move forward in every sentence. So the plot moves forward, but don't speed us through, or don't tell me. And then they had a family reunion the next day, and I'm like, really?
Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, but surely something could have happened there, So I think when I look back at the books, I'm like, these are my favorite scenes. Like there's one book, and I'm trying to think which one it was now, but the family was together. It was one of the San Francisco Sullivans, and one of the something was going down, and then one of the other siblings was like, "Ooh, I need popcorn." And I'm right?
Looking from the outside.
Yeah, it's because they're there, and I'm like, they need popcorn. The reader needs popcorn. It's like watching.
And that's a really important point. You've got to think about the reader, right? The reader is the one that you've got to be understanding and what they want, and you're writing for them.
Well, and at the same time, you have to write entirely for yourself.
Oh, good. I'm glad
that
you got that straight.
There's no conflict there at all. Right? Look, that's the line that I think we always walk as an artist. You're always going to walk the line of, and people who are like, oh my God, Belle Andre is literally the most sort of business-focused person of all time. I'm also the most sort of artiste, this has to touch my soul.
I was going to say, it's got to be something you want to read.
Yes.
Otherwise,
yes.
How is it going to be?
Yes.
How's it going to come out on the page as being something special?
Yeah.
And I think those big marquee scenes of the gatherings, whatever they are, is actually bringing the reader back into that world, because they want to stay in the world.
It's the world.
Characters are there, they want to stay in the world. And so what you're doing is you're inviting the reader back in because it feels familiar. They already know those characters, and so they're feeling part of it as well.
That's right. Yeah. So for my advertising, what we use a lot, me and my sort of advertising team, is fall in love with America's favorite family. So that's really, because that's what it is. That's what I write. And even for my Maverick Billionaires series, none of them are related by blood, but they're all brothers.
Yeah.
So I write about family. That's what I do.
And people like that.
Yeah.
People love it, and people love it whether they came from a great family or whether they came from a not great family.
I mean,
everybody likes to read about a family that supports each other. That's what I do. You know.
I agree. I think it's a real human need to want to belong to a tribe. You know, it's just
fundamental. That always has your back.
Yeah. And a family can be lots of different ways.
Made or born kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I've gotten to play a lot of fun things with the idea of family. Like with the first 8, she was widowed and had raised all 8 children, herself. And then with the next 5 in Seattle, they were a happily married couple. And then with the next 4 in New York, the mom had committed suicide when the 4 were little, and the father had never recovered. And so just playing with it, it is like all the different kinds of, and so again, if I'm going to put it in sort of like a clinical sort of character term, every hero and heroine's damage is different because they're all coming, even when they have the same parent, their experience of being in that family is totally different.
They're all coming at a different angle, aren't they?
And I think you know that with your own family, with your brothers and sisters, if you've been lucky enough to have them or not lucky. And you've all been brought up the same way, but you all have your own personalities and your view of the world. And how it's affected you.
And you get to play with that.
Yes.
And be the one in the middle, So we were talking about this earlier, about how it wasn't your first book or your second book that you really, it was more your 5th book that you felt that you had the big break. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
So I think one of the real bonuses of self-publishing is that traditionally in the publishing world, a publisher might sort of say, we'll give you 3 shots, right? So that's why there's a lot of trilogies in the world. And if you didn't nail it, or they weren't able to do whatever magic they needed to do by book 3, it was like, well, we'll either cut you loose or we'll try again. But what I always noticed when I was in the traditional world, because I'm obviously very analytical about it all, I was like, God, none of the people who've really done really well with a series, really, it never popped until book 5, sometimes 6. So I just thought, whatever I do, I have to put the blinders on and just believe this is all going to work out, and just go. And so I put out 1, and then I put out 2, and they did fine, well, 3 good, 4 fine, and 5 the whole wall blew out. And by 6, I simultaneously had 3 books on the New York Times and 3 books on the USA Today.
Wow.
So it kind of, and what's interesting is I've replicated that now in Germany. And it was book 5.
Really?
Same thing again? Same exact thing.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so it is, I'm telling you guys, it's like science.
I'm kind of excited.
I know, you're like,
go. Series now.
But I think you really don't even have anything to work with from a marketing perspective until you've got at least 4 books out in a series. But I'm going to call it 5 because it's a slightly different market now, and I do think I think it's always been a very competitive market. I think it is competitive now, and I think if you're going to want to start playing with sort of advertising and trying to get a BookBub promo, trying to look at Facebook ads or Amazon marketing services kind of stuff, you need to have enough books in a series for people to really sink their teeth into, make their way through and get invested and be on board with you. And then, when, from my perspective, if I, were coaching all the writers, all of the team, I just say, stay the course. Stay the course at that point, because now you've got them, now you've got a loyal readership. And if you can stay the course for long enough, then you can start doing some experiments. Like when I introduced the Maverick Billionaires, I was like, I don't know what they're going to think. And I think I had done maybe 11 or 12 Sullivans at that point. And there were people who were a little nervous, like, oh, I don't know. And I generally don't like billionaire stories, but, I was like, no, my billionaires aren't quite, I don't write a billionaire like I think what you're thinking. And now I'm shocked actually by how many Sullivan fans are like, actually, Mavericks are my favorite now. Wow. By book 5.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
And
so
you're going to keep writing them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Jennifer Scully and I have we've planned through 6 and 7. Like we did the first core 5, and now it's like the sisters and the brothers and stuff. So yeah, they won't come out quite as often. It'll be like one a year or so. But absolutely. And I'll tell you what, it's another thing where I'm like, I don't think I'll ever stop writing the Maverick Billionaires, because same with the Sullivans. People are like, this is my favorite series. And then I'm like, I can't, I'm not, plus I love writing them, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to stop writing them. Why would I?
Yeah. And you're fulfilling your readers' needs as well.
Well, I think we're all being fulfilled. Again, if you can find the concentric circles where there's one other piece of the concentric circle, which I don't want to be remiss. If you can find the point where these all meet, where what you love to write and what people love to read and what's easy for you to write come together, then I think you're going to do fine.
Because what's your process? If you're talking about easy to write, are you a fast writer then?
I'm a crazy obsessive rewriter.
Yeah.
To the point where my friends are like, you have issues. And you should get help.
Yeah. So you nut out the first draft really quickly, or?
I mean, really quickly. Like, no, I'd like it to come quicker.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it depends. Like, depending on how much time I have in the schedule, it's like 2,000 to 4,000 words a day is a pretty normal clip. And that can take between 2 and 8 hours, depending on like how good or bad a day it is. It's funny how many bad days there are. And like, how have I been at this for 7 hours? And I have like 1,500 words. What have I been doing?
Boy, it's reassuring to hear you say
this. It's like, God, So yeah, what was
so you get the first draft done?
Yes, and then I rewrite, and I'm nuts. I usually do like 4 pretty hardcore drafts.
Okay.
And while I'm writing the draft, I actually write myself a revision letter. I don't like to stop to revise.
Listen.
Listen, you. When I took you on, I thought you had promised.
Where's that gone?
Yeah. Very concerned. No, so I usually, by the time I don't see, this is the thing about not plotting. By the time my draft is done, I've usually written myself a 20-page single-space revision letter.
Right.
Where it's like redo the first 100 pages in its entirety, your heroes are wrong or whatever, because for me it's like I kind of have to write the book to know what the book is. So, and then I go, oh, that's what you are. First 100 pages were all wrong, and then I can kind of go back, usually in most cases, and with such clarity. And I think once you have that kind of clarity, and I don't know, you guys might think this is a little weird, it becomes very mathematical to me at that point.
You're not my twin, are you?
Is that what you think? Because I've never heard anybody else say it becomes
that's
math.
very much like me. Like the first X
You two are just creepy. Stop it with the
No, oh my God, it's weird. I have one other, Carol Grace is my other life twin, so hi. I know, it's like there's 3 of us, if you're wondering. I know, it's scary.
Oh my God.
And then how many edits do you have? Do you send it out to an editor? Or?
So I have a copy editor who's like best of the best. She's amazing. And then I have several proofreaders who also are copy editors, but they just work for me. So I get like extra rounds of copy editing, right? Yeah. And then sometimes like I have like dueling copy editors where I'm like, who do I want to go with on this one? And I don't, all English teachers everywhere. I'm sorry if you're an English teacher and you're listening to me say this. I don't worry that much about grammar or punctuation. I'm like, never really understood that. Because I'm like, I have a copy editor and a proofreader to take care of that. Yeah. For me, it's like, I think this is coming out of the music background, and if you say you do this too, then we need to, I don't know, it's weird. But it's very much, I think I use rhythm a lot when I write, and so I very deliberately break rules of writing, like grammar rules, because I'm trying to evoke an emotion with the rhythm of the words.
Hearing it in your head.
Totally. Yeah. So I'll repeat things, or I'll shift stuff, or I'll actually just break the rules, because I like the way something is kind of hitting the page.
Yeah, I get that a bit from the editor actually. So this word is not real. It's not actually going to fit in there.
Right, and you're like, no, I'm leaving it. It's totally exactly the emotion I wanted to put in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
You're a plotter, I take it? Yeah, like the plotter while potter. You're like, whatever, you're all nuts. All of you need help. Right?
I'm in between.
Right, you're in between.
Do you know what the funny thing is when I first started writing, I thought I would be a pantser like you guys.
Funny.
And I thought it was all going to come the
Sure,
words
the
were gonna
magic was all going to come down.
Yeah, and then I realised that, no, I actually need to have it organised and plotted out, otherwise I go insane. But anyway, that's...
Yes, but I think, like, for me, I really get that on the business. Like, right, so I can tap into that very, what is it, left brain, right brain? Which one's the...
Creative is the left brain.
Left brain, so right brain, right.
That whole
Right,
concept's been debunked and...
Okay,
areas,
well, whatever.
So,
So tapping into just, like, the different kinds of
creative
my personality.
versus,
All the personality.
But I mean, music.
all the voices.
Right, all the voices in my head get answered. delete.
As long as the voices aren't telling you to do anything crazy, it's fine.
It's all good.
But I mean, but maths and music are so aligned. Like music is mathematical, so it makes real sense, perfect sense.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Lucy Kevin as well a little bit. So this is another pen name, and I'd love to talk about why you decided to start up Lucy. Like she's quite, and why the new different pen name and how that all kind of emerged.
Sure. And I do think my alarm's actually going to go off soon. And so
that's all right.
so just to warn you. So I had some early success with self-publishing Bella Andre, and previous to all my publishing endeavors, I had tried to get published. The first thing I tried to get published was by Harlequin, so for category books. And like I have the like folder of rejection saying you just don't have a category voice. And then I would like, well, maybe if I tried this line, you know, and then I'd like create a chic. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, right? What is that? And no wonder I didn't have a category voice. I didn't know what I was doing. So anyway, but I had quite a few books actually. I had like 5. I had written the whole thing.
Wow.
So, and they were shorter. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Hold on.
That's
Let me
right.
turn that off.
That's no worries.
It's Bella Andre's phone ringing.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, sorry. I'm the person in the movie theater. Get out. Okay. But anyway, so my husband was like, hey, the self-publishing thing seems to be going pretty good. Don't you have those books? And I was like, oh, I have them, but you know, I wrote them very specifically for something, and I don't know. And they're not, I was like, they're not Bella Andre. You know, I was like, they're not Bella Andre books. And again, my whole thing is a promise to the reader, right?
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing. Never break that. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then, you know, he got me thinking. And so without telling him I was doing it, without telling anyone I was doing it, I went and I grabbed all those books. And I remember like one day we went to the beach with the kids and they were little, and I'm like afraid of all things in the ocean. So I was on the beach, you know, and they were in the water. And I remember sitting on the beach that day, and I had brought one of the books, I think on my Kindle or something. And I read one and I thought, oh, I actually think I know what this needs. There were sex scenes in those books. And I was like, no, these are my Debbie May Comer books. Right? Because I was like, the Bella Andre books are my Nora Roberts books.
No.
But that's not the entire market. Debbie has the other part of the market.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh,
what?
I like it.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, oh, I like that part of the market too. And then I have the whole thing. So it was, you know, it was really, so I went, I mean, it was really like, I went back and I had those 4 books, and I went and rewrote them all, which was good. They needed to be rewritten now that I like knew how to write a book. So I went and completely shredded them, pulled out all the sex, really kind of honed like what is sort of the Lucy Kevin brand and voice and everything. And then, as luck would have it, I thought, how should I cover these? And like, you guys remember when Bridget Jones' Diary was really popular?
Yeah.
And it was all those like cartoon covers, and then they went away. They were gone. And I think publishers were like, no one wants to read these anymore. We've glutted the market. And they had, they had glutted the market. But so no one had been able to buy a book with a cartoon on it for a long time by that point. It had probably been a decade.
Yeah.
So I found these really great like illustrations of a girl in her like little skirt kind of, and her little umbrella, because the first one was called Seattle Girl. And I put it up, and I didn't tell anyone. I put him up as Lucy Kevin. I told no one, didn't even tell my husband. And a month later, I had
Wow.
sold 25,000 copies.
Wow.
And I was like, go Lucy Kevin. So I quickly rewrote and got up the next 3. And it was at that point that the Washington Post called and said,
Wow.
who are you?
Yeah.
We should talk. So, yeah. So it was actually...
What did your husband say when you told him?
Oh, he was super excited. He was like, what else do you have? That would be nothing, honey. So,
Had it all.
yeah, totally.
At what point did you kind of out yourself as being Lucy Kevin? When did you bring
Well,
the
it was
two
never a secret, right?
Mhm.
So I didn't lie, although I had someone draw like an illustration of me.
Yeah.
Because I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
me. But so you guys are like, you have said those words so many times, but my promise to the reader thing is so strict. People would say, why don't you give the power of your bigger brand, which is Belle Andre, to your smaller brand? And I say, it's not worth it. I'm not willing to lose readers Belle Andre readers who may come to Lucy Kevin and be like, oh, I hate these. I'm done with her now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not sure that there's a way to totally test that without screwing things up.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was, over the course of the first sort of I'd say 4 years, a surprising number of people would come to me online or in person at a conference or whatever and say, my 2 favorite authors are Belle Andre and Lucy Kevin. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting? And
Isn't that interesting?
And it's because the voice is the same,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I am the same me,
Yes.
right? And so I went, all right. And then Apple came and offered me basically the opportunity of a lifetime in around about 2014 and said, would you like to get your book in front of 1 billion people? And I was like, let's do that.
Oh, no, not
So,
at all.
No,
yeah.
Think about it.
I'm
No,
washing-
I
washing
don't
my
know.
hair today.
I know, and I'm like, and I even said to them, I was like, well, did you think I was going to say that?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? You guys are so weird. So anyway, and at that point I thought, okay, you know what? I feel like I've had enough data. It was a brand new Lucy Kevin series. It was the Walker Island series at the time, and I was like, let's do this thing. So that was when I branded it to Belle Andre writing as Lucy Kevin, and that was really when I started to even talk about it in my Belle Andre newsletters, which I never had. And even now, I don't talk about it that much. There's still a carefulness to it, but I feel like I've had enough people kind of come and say, I love everything you write. With that said, there are definitely a subset of Lucy Kevin readers who do not want to read the Belle Andre, and because to me there is a very distinct line between books with sex in them and books without sex in them.
Yeah.
And there is a reason why Debbie Maycomer readers love Debbie Maycomer. You are not going to find that in there. And there's a
surprised.
and even the world building has it's slightly different because of that. And so it's all it's all math in my head. It's all very clear inside my head what it is. But I feel more and more confident over the years that, and some people know, I think, who have tried the Lucy Kevin or the Belle Andre from either side and go, not my favorite, and they can just happily not like them and don't read them. I think that's where I am now because it's been long enough at this point.
Yes.
But I was nervous because you work really hard to build a relationship with your readers.
Yeah.
And it was never worth it to me to try to sell some more Lucy Kevin books, to try to go to the Belle Andre readers, hey, these are exactly the same, you're going to love them, because they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many Lucy Kevin books are there?
There's quite a few. There's those first 4, and then there's 5 in the 4 Weddings and a Fiasco series, 5 in the Walker Island series, and then I'm just about to release book 3 in the Married in Malibu, which is a spin-off of the 4 Weddings and a Fiasco.
Oh, wow. Okay. So just a couple.
Just a few.
Lucy's been busy too.
Yeah, Lucy is busy, and she's sort of my, every time I think, oh, I don't know if I have time for Lucy, great things happen, because again, there's people, there's a huge people and corporations that really like to know that they can get behind something that just doesn't have any sexual content in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. So we're coming up on the hour, and I think we need to set you free to the rest of the conference. I know, I don't want to. Honestly,
We've actually locked the door.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's not creepy at all.
No, it's totally not.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
guys.
We really
Amazing.
appreciated it.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. So so many more questions I could ask, but
Yeah.
I'm holding myself back. But so where's the best place for people to go and learn about you or find you?
BellaAndre.com.
Yeah.
BellaAndre.com. And then if you're like, she sounds kind of interesting or wacky, The Look of Love is the book. Go try The Look of Love.
The Look of Love.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
fantastic.
Cool.
And where can we be found?
We can be found right here locking Bella Andre up and getting arrested for it probably, but otherwise we can be found at spargirlspodcast.com.
Awesome.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you so much, Bella.
Thank you.
It's been a real treat.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
And
Thank you.
Talk to you again next week. Bye.
Bye.